On a calm afternoon, after listening to the Buddhist discourses on the nature of all things, a disciple approached and expressed the contemplation in his heart, initiating a simple dialogue. Revered Buddha, I observe this world and notice a truly baffling arrangement. There are creatures that can initiate life on their own, and so they exist and reach their end without needing a connection to anyone else. Yet there are other species that, to continue life, need to seek out their other half. Why did nature make things so complicated? Why is life divided into two distinct forms, male and female? I contemplate this and feel that it is a very profound law, a secret that common explanations cannot touch. The Buddha listened, his eyes compassionate and gentle. He slowly replied, not explaining, but merely pointing out a truth. My son, when life was at its simplest, its sole purpose was to maintain existence. It only needed to survive. But when life desired to understand itself, to clearly perceive who it is, it had to learn to reflect through another form, another individual. The division into two tendencies, male and female, is not for them to be separate. The purpose is for life to understand a crucial truth. Nothing exists alone in this world. My son, are you ready? Breathe slowly and release yourself back to that distant past, when all things were still in the sleep of creation asterisk at that time. This world was not the world as you know it. It was a vast emptiness where life patiently awaited. Only water, stone, wind, and light were the masters of the beginning. Look closely. Water, carrying softness and endless flow, is the substance of nourishment. Stone, carrying firmness and the endurance of time, is the foundation of all forms. Wind is the invisible breath, carrying messages from one space to another. And light is the supreme energy, the universe's first glance at itself. These four elements naturally merged, naturally balanced, with no concept of antagonism or struggle. And in that grand and quiet scene, life had no form, no gender. It did not need to wear a garment to prove its presence. It was purity, the most naked essence. You could not yet call it male, female, plant, or animal. It lay outside all categories, all names that humans would later create. It was the way it is, unbound by the way it must be. It was only a small but powerful desire to continue. This desire did not come from an individual, but from the very flow of the universe. It hid, it was silent. It was like the subtle breath in the earth and sea. Imagine it was a thin mist, lingering in underground streams, dissolving into the air, ready to crystallize any time it was called. It was the unpolarized, undivided starting point, with no concept of giving or receiving. Because it was everything and nothing, this silence was not death, but absolute containment. It held all possibilities, all colors, all forms that would later appear. This stillness is the truest nature of all things, a great unity before the separation, which is male and female, was born to fulfill the mission of enriching life. Contemplate this to see that the origin of all differences is absolute harmony asterisk. My son, after the absolute stillness of the beginning, now that subtle breath begins to germinate. Let us take one more step to the miraculous moment when life began to unveil itself. Do you know? When the conditions converged, light, water, inorganic substances, that silent yearning for existence was suddenly permitted by the universe. And so the first sprouts of life appeared. They were incredibly simple entities, tiny microorganisms. They had no eyes to see, no legs to walk, no mind to think or distinguish. They were merely fragile membrane sacs containing the wonder of living matter. Their mission then was only one: to duplicate themselves to survive. This is how rudimentary life performs continuation. Imagine, that tiny cell grows to a certain size, and suddenly it splits itself into two. No combination needed, no intermingling, no searching for an other. It was unique, it was all it needed. It was both the giver and the receiver in one unified form. Because of this, in this first stage, the concept of gender was completely non-existent. Life did not yet need two poles to sustain itself. It was a perfect loop of self-replication. Each newly born individual was an exact replica, a version no different from the mother cell. like two identical drops of water, they carried no difference within themselves to necessitate division into two genders. All the operation was driven by a single, pure, and most instinctual motivation, only the need to continue. The need to transcend time, to be present in the next moment, to preserve that miraculous formula of life that the universe had bestowed. It was an absolute obedience to the law of existence. Life at this point was uniformity, an eternal repetition. This continuation was a straight path, without the detours, the mixtures, or the surprises that sexual reproduction would later bring. Contemplate this, to see that gender, male and female, is not a prerequisite for life, but a choice, an evolutionary choice of nature, so that later the game of life would become much richer and more profound. This pure duplication was the foundation, but it was not yet the pinnacle of development, my son. You have seen the purity and intense desire to continue in the time of self-replicating microorganisms. But within that perfection, that uniformity, something we call emptiness began to arise. Contemplate this. Life, in that first stage, was a continuous stream of repetition. Like standing before an endless mirror, every image is identical, with no detail to cause surprise or challenge. Each time it split, it only created another perfect copy of the original essence. This duplication, while efficient and fast, carried monotony within it. That monotony was the seed of stagnation. Nature at that time was like a composer who only knew how to play a single note, no matter how pure that note was. Everything repeated exactly, with no addition, no correction, no cross-pollination from the outside to create a fresher melody. Life was ensured, but development was stalled. This led to a feeling that I must use human words to express, and nature began to tire of itself. This is not physical fatigue, my son, but the fatigue of the evolutionary spirit. Nature understood that if it continued on this path, life would become a closed circle, an existence that was safe but lacked vitality. Imagine if an environment changed, temperature suddenly increased, or a new nutrient source appeared. An individual that was a perfect copy of the previous individual would react exactly the same. If the original could not adapt, the entire chain of life would be wiped out, because no individual carried a different idea to test a new way of survival. No gene mixing, no genetic difference means no capacity for evolution. This emptiness was an invitation. It was not a negative, but a subtle driving force urging life to seek another path, a new, more risky, yet much richer mode of existence. Nature began to crave difference. It yearned for something new, a mixture, so that each time life continued, it carried something unique, something novel. And it is from this tiring of itself that the notion of two different streams began to form. Life realized that to truly develop, it needed to step out of its own shadow to find a companion, a partner to jointly create the never dash before dash scene. My son, you have contemplated the monotony and the feeling of emptiness of life when it only knew self-duplication. Now, let us look at how nature answered that invitation from the exhaustion with itself. A great movement occurred within the primordial ocean. Life began to seek another path. It was no longer content with creating exact replicas, but began to yearn for something ... not like itself, a complement, a partner. And then the moment came, the moment of breakthrough. One form of life combined with another form. This was a watershed event, the beginning of a new era. Two biological energy streams, two simple cells, which had accumulated experiences and genetic information in slightly different ways, broke the individual barrier to decide to intermingle. This was a bold act by nature, accepting to abandon the absolute safety of self-duplication to embrace a new risk, the risk of connection. Life understood that to move forward, it must know how to give and receive, and when that combination occurred, a miracle appeared. For the first time, there was something called the mixture. This mixture was not just simple addition, but the dissolution of two essences to form a completely new quintessence. Imagine this mixture is the deep source of all the diversity you see in the world. Like two different types of soil, when mixed, they create a new soil capable of nourishing species of plants that have never grown before. It It is thanks to this historic mixing that the world suddenly gained a new difference. The new individual born was no longer a repeating version, but a unique combination, a genetic complex that had never appeared. It carried half the life experience of one stream and half the life experience of the other, creating a completely new survival solution. This difference, my son, is the first spark that lit the lamp of evolution, opening up an infinite horizon for the creativity of life. From then on, life was no longer monotonous, but became incredibly rich, ready for all the challenges of the universe. My son, you have seen the birth of difference. Now let us contemplate its great importance to the stream of life. That difference was not just a passing event, but was immediately recognized by nature as the master key. Like a sage who, after years of contemplation, suddenly finds the truth, nature saw the light. It understood that the safety of self-duplication was merely a fragile cocoon. To become resilient, life cannot advance by repetition, but by breakthrough. And this is the great realization. The first law of sexual evolution that nature deduced. Only when two different things meet can life evolve. The meeting of two different information streams is necessary to create diverse solutions for unforeseen problems. Evolution is not random, aimless change, but the selection of the best living ideas from the mixtures. Imagine, the earth is a place that is always changing, never stable. When the environment changes suddenly, like an ice age or a great flood, if life were only self-replicating, duplicating failures, the entire species would perish. But when there is mating and difference, there is always one individual that coincidentally carries a more suitable gene complex, living idea to overcome the challenge. That individual will survive, pass on the superior genes, and thus pull the entire stream of life forward. Therefore, the difference is no longer a coincidence, my son, but has become a survival strategy, the source of continuous development. It is a kind of great biological insurance. It ensures that no matter what danger occurs, no matter how the earth changes, somewhere in the stream of life, there is always a gene complex that can adapt, can survive, and from there, continue to thrive more strongly. And it is from the moment nature recognized the value of this difference that the notion of two dimensions, of two poles, what humans would later call male and female, was established firmly as an immutable principle to maintain the diversity and the continuous movement of life. The path from monotony had completely turned to the path of richness, and gender was born to protect that richness. My son, you have seen the birth of difference and how nature turned it into the source of evolution. Now we will contemplate the materialization of that difference into the form that humans call gender. From the recognition of the necessity of mixing, nature established a perfect biological system to ensure that combination always occurs in the most effective and diverse way. And so male and female were born. This is not a division, but a specialization, a division of labor to fulfill a single purpose. They appeared as two dimensions of the same rhythm of life, two sides of a coin, inseparable yet creating common value. Each dimension carries a vital function. Look at the essence of this difference. One side carries the seed. One side carries the driving force. The seed carrier, my son, is the side that carries genetic information in the form of a larger, more nutrient-rich cell, capable of nourishing and containing potential. It represents stability, patience, and preservation. The driving force carrier is the side that carries genetic information in the form of a smaller, more mobile cell, capable of seeking and actively bringing the seed to the meeting place. It represents dynamism, exploration, and breakthrough. Both are indispensable factors in the formula of life. You must see this clearly. Neither is greater nor lesser. The seed carrier is not more magnificent than the driving force carrier, and vice versa. They are merely the allocation of resources and energy in two different ways to achieve the common goal of continuation. They are two perfect halves that complement each other, ensuring that genetic information is not only mixed but also protected and nourished from the very first moments. This specialization helped nature optimize the process of sexual reproduction, turning it into a sustainable mechanism. Male and female were not born to confront or compare, but merely as two ways for life to proceed in the richest and strongest way. They are two different verbs directed toward a single noun, new life. The birth of these two poles is nature's great choice to uphold the principle, diversity creates evolution. Male and female are the most visible manifestations of the principle of harmony through difference. Understand, my son, that no matter how many rules or prejudices humans may later set about these two poles, their pure origin remains absolute balance and mutual necessity. My son, you have seen the pure birth of the two poles, male and female, as two dimensions of the same rhythm of life. Now let us delve into the philosophical meaning of that combination. What nature has learned. Sexual reproduction is not just a biological mechanism to create genetic diversity. Nature realized that it is also a process of learning and accumulating knowledge. The great notion was established. Being born through another is the way to learn, the path for life to perfect itself through each generation. Contemplate each act of intermingling. Each time is an occasion for life to test itself. The test here is not just the random combination of DNA strands, but the comparison of two living memories. The genes of one side carry the experience of adapting to shade. The other carries the experience of enduring harsh sunlight. When they combine, they create a new student, carrying both valuable lessons, ready to cope with more situations. Life, through combination, is constantly asking questions and seeking the best answers for existence. The core here, my son, is that life has gone beyond the concept of matter. It does not just transmit genes, but transmits understanding. Genes are the physical language. Understanding is the experience encoded in that language. This transmission is a continuous process of updating and upgrading the knowledge of life. When a creature is born through the mixture of two different streams, it does not only receive the physical structure, but also receives a solution complex. That has been time-tested by both mother and father. Mixing helps eliminate the errors, unsuitable genes, and retains the successful lessons, superior genes, from both sides, making the new generation wiser and more resilient than the previous one. This is a profoundly human process. Even though it occurs at the cellular level, life has built a system for never blindly repeating old mistakes. It uses difference as the tool, intermingling as the classroom, and new life as the proof of its progress. Therefore, each time you see a new being, you do not just see a body, but see a synthesis of knowledge, an intelligent book written by two different authors. And that is the miracle of being born through another. It is how nature ensures that life is always evolving, always learning, and never stops searching for perfection. My son, you've seen the pure birth of male and female in nature. They are absolute balance, mutual necessity. Now, let us contemplate the greatest turning point when humans began to interfere with this energy flow. After millions of years of evolution, a special creature appeared capable of complex thought and, more importantly, capable of naming. This is the human. When humans stood on Earth looking at those two perfect biological poles, instead of seeing harmony, they saw a need to classify, to define, to organize into different boxes. Humans began to assign epithets such as male, female, strong, weak. These names initially sounded harmless, but they carried tremendous power. They did not just describe the biological difference, but also assigned social qualities, moral values, and fixed responsibilities to these two poles. Male was not just the driving force carrier, but became the symbol of strong, of proactiveness. Of the seeker, the female was not just the seed carrier, but became the symbol of weak, of passiveness. Of the nurturer. It is these names that turn the pure primal energy flow of nature into rigid social roles. The pure energy was originally flexibility, where everyone carried both the giving and receiving parts, both the driving force and the seed. But when roles were established, humans were forced to only express one part of themselves, compelled to cut off the other part to fit the name that had been given. And this is the regret. My son, the balance began to tilt. When humans prioritized one pole like the strength, The proactiveness of male and downgraded the other pole, like the nurturing, the receptivity of female. They unintentionally destroyed the internal balance that nature had diligently built. The energy flow was no longer a closed circle, where both took turns giving and receiving, but became a straight line, where one side was honored and the other was limited. This imbalance did not only affect the relationship between male and female, but also affected the very essence of each human being. Each of us carries both of those energies within us, but out of fear of social names and roles, we voluntarily reject a part of our soul, leading to a great loss of wholeness. The act of naming and framing roles is when humans began to create unnecessary suffering and conflict in this world. My son, you've seen the imbalance beginning with the names and social roles that humans set for themselves. Now let us delve into the deepest loss, the loss that occurs within each of us. After social prejudice divided the world into male and female, strong and weak, a silent tragedy occurred, my son. Humans began to self-inject the notion that they are only one half, only one pole. They forgot the supreme truth, which is, in every person, there are both primal energies of life. Look deeply into yourself, into the operation of your being. In your body, mind, soul, there is both the giving part and the receiving part. The giving part is proactiveness, the will to act, the ability to reach out, build, and protect. It is the driving force that helps you move forward, pursue ideals. The receiving part is compassion, stillness, the ability to nourish, connect, and accept softness. It is the seed, helping you self-heal and nurture others. A man, my son, also needs the softness of the receiving part to understand and love. A woman also needs the strength of the giving part to protect herself and pursue dreams. Both of these energies inherently exist in parallel, complementing each other in every breath, every beat of your heart. But because of the fear of social judgment, fear of being called weak, fear of being called unmanly, or fear of being called too strong, humans voluntarily rejected a part of their nature. And this is the truth you need to engrave. Only when one of the two is rejected do humans truly become balanced. This imbalance is not just an emotional deficit, but it also impoverishes your spiritual life. When you reject the receiving part, you become dry, rigid, always in a state of combat. When you reject the giving part, you become insecure, passive, always waiting for external help. Wholeness does not lie in choosing between male or female, but in recognizing and nurturing both energies within yourself. You're a complete microcosm, and harmony only comes when you accept both the driving force and the seed, both the light and the shadow within your essence. That is the only path for you to regain the balance that nature bestowed upon you from the very beginning. However, in this life, you will see people who do not completely fit the male box or the female box that society has established. They are souls situated between the two poles, carrying a rich and unique mixture of both giving and receiving energy. They are the clearest expression of the richness that nature craved from the very beginning. However, once society erected rigid walls of prejudice, these souls were considered exceptions, abnormal, and sadly, they were pushed to the periphery of the community circle. They faced judgment, discrimination, and a lack of understanding, simply because they do not comply with the simple and crude two-pole division rule that humans created. But remember this word, and carry in your heart, nature has never called them wrong. The fault lies in how humans perceive, not in their nature. In the pure view of nature, their genetic combination is a unique possibility, a new and brave variant of life. Nature only calls them diverse. Diversity is richness, proof of the infinite creativity of the universe. Imagine a garden with only one kind of flower, no matter how beautiful it is. It will be boring and easily destroyed by one type of pest. Conversely, a garden with hundreds of types of flowers, in all colors and shapes, will always have abundant vitality and unlimited capacity for adaptation. And this is the great truth. It is precisely diversity that keeps the world continuously alive. These souls situated between the two poles are the reserve gene pool, the valuable living ideas that nature has painstakingly created to ensure the resilience of the entire stream of life. They carry flexibility, connection, and the ability to view the world beyond rigid binary limits. Respect this diversity, my son, because accepting them is not just compassion, but also understanding the law of nature's evolution. Only when humans accept and cherish all forms of diversity, even those outside their old division, will life truly achieve absolute wholeness and harmony. My son, you have seen the birth of life, the division into two poles, and the distortion by humans through social prejudice. Now, let us look at another type of knowledge, one that is trying to decode this mystery. Asterisk, as humans progressed, they began to use reason and tools to dissect and analyze everything. Science was born, and it has done extraordinary things. Science has found the mechanism of sexual life, but it is still on the way to truly understand its deep meaning. Listen, science talks about genes, hormones, DNA. They can precisely point out the double helix, explain how X and Y chromosomes determine gender, or how hormones regulate development. They can measure, classify, and even intervene in these material structures. This is valuable knowledge. Undeniably, however, you must contemplate closely. Those things are only the language of matter. Genes are the writing, hormones are the ink, and DNA is the book. They are the tools, the means that nature uses to create form. Science, with its intelligence, has read the letters, has understood the syntax of the material language. But have they truly understood the hidden message in that book yet? Have they understood nature's original intention when writing those lines of code? The answer is still ahead. Because there is one thing that modern science often overlooks, and that is the will of life. That will not be in a test tube. It cannot be measured by a microscope. It is the intense desire of the universe to express itself, to develop, to strive for diversity and perfection. This will is the invisible energy source, the driving force that pushes life from simple, self-duplication to the complex combination of male and female, and it is still something that only stillness can hear. Just like when you want to hear a valuable whisper, you cannot hear it in a noisy market. You must find a quiet place, calm your soul. Only when you put aside the noise of reason, of prejudice, of material analysis, can you feel the deep meaning that gender is not just biology, but a universal principle of harmony, and the necessity of difference to achieve harmony. Science is the eyes looking out, and stillness is the ears listening in. Only when the eyes and the ears work together can humans fully understand why nature chose to divide life into male and female. My son, you have journeyed through life, from the subtle breath to the complexity of human science and prejudice. Now let us conclude this cycle of contemplation with a view from above, a view of the enlightened one. When I transcend all constraints of form and name, I look back at the entire stream of life, from the time of self-replicating microorganisms to the birth of humanity. I do not look with the eyes of a scientist analyzing genes, nor through the lens of a sociologist classifying roles. I look with the eye of understanding, and from that eternal view, I see something surprisingly simple, something that humans often forget when they get entangled in the mess of prejudice and comparison. The truth is not in opposition, but in necessity. That simplicity is. Male and female are nature's way of teaching life to respect difference. Contemplate this. Nature created two poles so that life would never forget the lesson of diversity. This respect is not a moral rule, but a principle of survival. To give birth to a new being. Both sides, the giving side and the receiving side, must relinquish their uniformity, must open their hearts to accept and merge with something completely unlike themselves. The process of sexual reproduction is the greatest act of respect. Without the respect and acceptance of the other's differences, new life can never be born. That difference is necessary to create harmony. Because without two, no one knows what harmony is. If there is only one, there is only repetition, which is uniformity and monotony. There is no clash, no complement, and therefore, no need to seek balance. It is the interaction between the two poles, the dynamism of one side and the stillness of the other, that creates a balancing attraction. Harmony is not the disappearance of difference, but the acceptance and utilization of that difference to create a stronger and richer whole. Being born through another is the highest lesson of connection, companionship, and the acknowledgement that you are not everything. You need another person, another pole to become whole and to evolve, my son. You have seen the simplicity and the view of the enlightened one. Male and female are the lesson of respecting difference. Now, let us delve into liberating the mind from opposition to see the truth of harmony. After recognizing the value of difference, nature achieved a profound understanding. It is the understanding that difference is not opposition. This is a great leap, surpassing all the rudimentary classifications that humans often use. Opposition is confrontation, mutual elimination. Difference is complementary, is mutual enrichment. Look at nature to see this truth most clearly expressed. The one that flowers does not oppose the one that sows seeds. The flower plant, by its beauty and softness, fulfills the part of attracting and nurturing. The seed, by its patience and potential, fulfills the part of carrying life into the future. Both of these actions, blooming and seeding, are necessary for continuation. They do not compete for importance, but are jointly fulfilling a life cycle. Similarly, contemplate energy. The receiver is not weaker than the giver. Society often honors the giver as proactiveness, benevolence, viewing it as a symbol of strength. But if there were no receiver, which is tolerance, receptivity, then the giver would only be a useless waste, with nowhere to be placed. The receiver demands a deep openness and humility, which is also a marvelous form of strength. Both giving and receiving are two sides of the same flow, needing each other to complete the energy circle. Understanding this, life views all things with serenity. Everyone is simply fulfilling their assigned part. Every role, whether it is carrying the seed or carrying the driving force, whether it is giving or receiving, is an indispensable piece in the overall picture of the universe. No role is primary, no role is secondary. All are functions established to ensure the diversity and continuous evolution of life. This understanding is an invitation to release all comparisons and judgments in the human mind. When you stop viewing the two poles as opposition, you will see them as interdependence, as mutual reliance. And only when humans see the harmony in this difference can they find peace in their relationships with others and between themselves and the world. That is the pinnacle of wisdom that nature has painstakingly taught through the birth of male and female. My son, you have reached the end of this contemplation, through every step of evolution and every layer of meaning. Now, let us conclude with a final affirmation about the pure purpose of gender. After contemplating all the streams, all the separation and harmonization, I look back at the origin and smile. Because the truth is always the simplest and most beautiful. I want you to listen and remember this teaching. This is the essence of all understanding. Male and female were not born to divide life, but to give life a place to reflect upon itself. Contemplate this image, primal life. When it was only one was like pure light in an empty room. It was present, but it could not recognize its own shape and nature. To see itself, light needs an object for reflection. And male and female are two perfect mirrors. Placed opposite each other, the purpose of dividing into two poles is so that each pole can see its own nature, the giving, in the complement of the other pole, the receiving. When the driving force meets the seed, the driving force is defined. When the seed meets the driving force, the seed is activated. They are the explanation for each other, the confirmation for each other. If there were only one, life would never know that it exists. Life needs contrast, my son, to clearly see its own outline. Just as you cannot see white without black for contrast. If there is only one, only repetition, life would sink into a tasteless uniformity, with no stimulus to ask, who am I? Existence would become vague, lacking meaning. Therefore, nature chose two, so that in every encounter, life sees itself again through a different form. This is the highest cooperation, my son. Every time male and female intermingle, it is not just the transmission of genes, but the reaffirmation of life's existence. It is an eternal dance, where each side sees its energy being expressed and balanced by another form. You see your giving in the receiving of the other, and vice versa. You see your proactiveness being completed by the stillness of the other. Gender, at its root, is a lesson in self-awareness. It is an invitation for each of us to accept and respect our other form, so that from that connection, life continues to be renewed, to evolve, and to see its own complete beauty in the never-ending diversity of the universe. Carry this understanding to live fully in the balance of both energies within you.